Hi, my name is Toton Januar. I'm the creative director and co-founder of the brand Toton from Indonesia. And I'm really glad that I can reconnect with Orsola here and talk about sustainability and where we start and how we started.
Hi, my name is Orsola de Castro, and I am the co-founder and creative director of a global movement for fashion sustainability called Fashion Revolution. One of our initiatives, Fashion Open Studio, is where we've met with Toton. I'm delighted to be here today, continuing what was already a really interesting conversation.
So first question that I'm going to ask you, I know it's been in a lot of people's mind, and of course, it's been on my mind as well all these years, that I always think that sustainability is something quite exclusive, that you really have to do a certain kind of standard of procedure to be considered doing a sustainable effort. So what's your take on that?
Well, it's a brilliant question, and especially coming from you after our conversation. So I know your tribulation, I really know your honesty around this issue, and how you've really, your integrity has mattered so much, before you've been able to really embrace it. And I have two different answers. So, I mean, one is really banal. But if you are a mainstream brand employing millions of people and selling billions of garments, then in order to be sustainable, you have to ensure that your entire supply chain is paid a dignified living wage. And that's the first step, and there is absolutely zero question about that. The fact that we're still debating that this industry that makes trillions still doesn't pay fairly is problematic.
Yes.
But for smaller brands, for brands that are starting out,
brands like mine,
that are, more like yours, or many of the other young brands in the Fashion Open Studio cohort, then it is different. Because the first thing that really does make you sustainable is your intentions. You've totally said it. Sustainability is exclusive, especially the way that we've been selling it these days. It's exclusive, it's difficult, it's, it's laborious. So what needs to happen is that smaller brands such as yourselves have that entry point, that place you feel really comfortable in making a start that then will become bigger and bigger and bigger. This is my experience. I've not met a young sustainable designer starting with, say, upcycling or innovation in materials that didn't grow year upon year upon year and introduced more and more sustainable alternative. The point is that for brands such as you, that sustainability and those ethics need to navigate with your design signature.
Yes.
Because you need to sell, and you will sell only your strength, your best designs. So you mustn't compromise on that, but do the opposite. Find how your creativity can be of service. I mean, in your case, and I'm really interested to hear your story, you work with local craftspeople.
Yes, that's true.
I mean, that in itself is incredible. What an opportunity. Here in the West, we've hardly got any craftspeople left.
And
but it's such a also a commitment. How do you navigate that, for instance?
Yeah, it's the funny thing is we never considered that as something really extraordinary, because here in Indonesia, we kind of take the craftsmen for granted, unfortunately, because we have a lot of them here. And also when I started the label in 2012 with my partner Hario, we were aiming to have a contemporary brand with a translation of what we have here in Indonesia, may it be the culture, the craftsmanship, working with artisans, traditional clothings. And yeah, for years, I never consider my effort or what I do as sustainable. It's just come naturally to me because I love what I do. I love my country, and I love to be inspired by my country. And not until I had the class with you for Fashion Open Studio that I realized that is a cultural sustainability. It is an effort, and I think with that comes in mind, there's this new point of view to increase the effort and then to put a better direction to it.
Yes,
and yes,
I totally agree. I mean, for me, you've really said it. You know, sustainability becomes an effort when you realize that it's linked with innovation. It's linked with even new, new techniques and new crafts. But ultimately, it is about efficiency. It is about common sense.
Sure.
It is about what is available to you as close to you as possible. So for me, the most inspiring in many ways are those who actually enter a sustainable or ethical conversation, as you say, quite naturally, without necessarily knowing that you're doing something differently. I often maintain that, really 95% of what we buy is unsustainable fashion.
Yes.
While brands such as yours are fashion. I don't like the other way around. I don't like calling cohort sustainable because I know that they are. I would way rather call their antithesis the non-sustainable ones. And this was interesting to me. It happened a lot since I published my book.
Yes.
I've been approached by so many people who tell me, but, look, I've been mending my clothes all my life, or, I can't afford to buy new clothes. My family has been wearing hand-me-downs, and this is how we style them. Does this mean that we are a sustainable family?
Yeah.
It's like, it's a really weird question because I too come from a family that, we shared our clothes, we still do. And so we need to be careful sometimes with words and appellations. Yes. Especially when they describe something really instinctive. I mean, you said it, you love your country, you want to support the people that live in it. And that for you, your artisanal communities are ever present in your thoughts and in your design process. Yes. It's only us, here in kind of, in the West, and, I'm in Italy. I've just witnessed the fall of artisans and the extinctions of crafts, a little bit like, other people have witnessed the extinctions of certain animals. And, each loss is a loss to the ecosystem, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, that's true. I think it's funny that you mentioned that because I think it's the same happen in Indonesia, because in our country, we have this culture of mending things, hand-me-downs, and keeping what we need as long as we can. And if we cannot use, say, a piece of cloth, we can always use it for cleaning the house. So yeah, I mean, it comes naturally for us here in Indonesia that, my question, and I think you answer it partly, that when it becomes a sustainable effort, those kind of habits that we have as a nation.
Well, for me, it's when you actively use them as a solution. So again, I can give you an example of myself. I wasn't aware of the fact that what I was doing when I had a brand and I upcycled. So
from somewhere,
bits and pieces changed, transformed, whatever. I wasn't aware that what I was doing was sustainable until I asked myself the question, which was, okay, so I can see more and more waste around me. So I am identifying the fact that there is a problem and that my creativity is a solution. How can I make it even more of a solution? How can I use even more of this material? I guess for me, it was the moment that I decided that I was going to be uncompromising with the materials I used. It was the moment when I saw that my brand was beginning to grow in numbers, and I was still being, okay, I'm still going to do everything from secondhand, or everything from abandoned, everything from found, everything from leftovers. At that point, it had become my design signature to work with leftovers. And I feel that this is, the effort sometimes is something that you don't notice until you realize that you're really attached to it.
Yes, you cannot live without it. Yeah.
And then you think, aha, hang on a second. No, don't take away that from me.
That's true.
This is important to what I do. It's my principles, that's my design. When I had a brand, the way that we started was making crochet holes around really, really broken jumpers. And literally we started secondhand, my friends' jumpers, then secondhand stores. Then I was climbing over warehouses of broken jumpers. But at one point towards the beginning, a really big American department store asked us to do the same jumpers from new in China. That deal would have been worth an absolute fortune.
I could only imagine.
A fortune. I mean, we were talking, going from, a few hundred jumpers a month, or maybe at that to, And at that point I knew. I mean, at that point I was absolutely married to the effort of finding those jumpers, crocheting them myself, having only few of them. And the thought of going to make them in China was like, well, that's not me. That's not my brand. That's not what I want to do.
That's true.
And so I think for young designers such as you, you're committed to your design, to your amazing product, to your customers, to your sale. One day someone is going to come with the deal and you'll say, I'm not so sure about that. Or you will suddenly wake up one morning and think, okay, how can I even increase? How can that become even a little bit more than what it is right now? And that's when that effort becomes your guiding path, because that's what it is. In often things that are more complicated ignite your creativity, because we are designers, and designers at the end of the day, we are people for solutions.
I think that's really true, because I think I've got the similar experience with with my brand. So one time we have this collection with this beautiful hand-woven silk from Lagosi. That's an area like in the mountains of South Celebes. And we went there to acquire all this fabric, because it's only made by these women, the housewives, and they only do that in their spare times. So one piece of fabrics, like 2-3 meters fabric, they can spend like 3 months making that piece. So it's very limited, but I love them. It's very beautiful, and it's from the area where I was born. So and then we met with this international retailer. They have like stores everywhere. They have a lifestyle products and also fashion products, and they asked if we can reproduce the effect of the fabric for mass with lower price. And I was like, I don't know if I can do. I don't know if I can do that. I mean, it's going to be like a cheap knockoff of what I do, and it doesn't honor the meaning, the value of the fabric. Of course, I turned down the offer. It could worth a lot, but sometimes working with artisans can be difficult as well.
I'm sure. No, I was going to say exactly. So I come from another story when I had a brand, so I'm really interested in what the barriers are. Also, because I think that these conversations, in the end of the day, are really useful for all designers who are, maybe thinking of starting or embarking on a journey of working with local crafts. So, in what way is it difficult exactly?
With me, I think it's more of the timetable, and the second part of it is with innovation, because they are so used to with the way they work as an artisans, that they have this knowledge passed down from generations before, and they have they're not really eager to learn something new, and then yeah, when they find something in, for example, a difficult, more difficult technique, so they're going to take longer time to do that. I mean, understandable, but we used to do collections by seasons, and of course we have to deliver on time and this and that. So most of the time that was the problem. So yeah, I think the most memorable experience is when we were the finalists for Wilmark Prize in 2016 or 17. So
beautiful collection.
Thank you. But the hard work, oh my God, I was like crying blood doing that. Because I have to like convince the artisans to keep on trying with the wool, because it was hand woven with non-machinery machine. So it kept breaking up the fiber, because it wasn't meant to be woven that way. But yeah, we try to mix it with cotton, with silk, with at the end of the day it worked, but it takes like 5 times changing of the artisans, because they were like, no, I'm not doing this, I'm giving up.
Really interesting what you're saying, Toton, because so the tension between tradition and innovation is a very strange place to be, in the sense that, so in many cases and sometimes we prevent innovation from happening because we want to cradle and protect the tradition. But in many cases, that same obstinacy to learn something new is a problem. So I can give you, 2 different examples. I mean, one would be in industrialization, both in Italy and actually in China. Many of the producing factories are run by the first or second generation family or group that started them. And they are really reluctant to embrace new technologies. They believe that what they do is sacred and done the right way, whether it's industrial or artisanal. And the problem lies in the fact that, unfortunately, in the cases of technology, I'm talking factories in China or Bangladesh, where the younger generations are so much more aware of the environmental impact and the social impact, and they really would like to see change happen within those structures. But perhaps their fathers or uncles come from a generation that are very set in doing it their own way, and the respect for the elderly often prevents the innovation from penetrating where it's really, really needed. And in the case of skills, I've witnessed this to a certain extent in Italy. Many of the really, really skilled artisans, in my case, I'm talking generally women making lace, or their daughters and granddaughters don't want that job. And so there is no impetus to translate that craft form into something which is more modern. And so it's really a big problem, because we need to innovate also when it comes to craft skills, and we need to provide somehow that inspiration as well. And it's a really difficult one.
I think it's the same everywhere. I think the need of preserving the legacy, the tradition, and the needs of innovation, it should go hand in hand.
I could more. I mean, in my case, I have a particular attachment for those designers that are brave enough to work with artisanal communities, because it is a massive responsibility as well as everything else. I mean, you know, they rely on you and on your brand. You know, what happens, you know, I remember being a small brand. It's not like being H&M or being, you know, you know, you don't know exactly how much you're going to sell each time. It's unpredictable. The market fluctuates, you know, things like COVID happen. And you have a massive responsibility of entire communities that are relying on you to, you know, to, well, be part of their, you know, support mechanisms. So it's a very brave choice.
And I think, thinking back about all this effort that the brand, my brand, has done. Like I said, when we entered the Fashion Open Studio program and we met with you, and then we had your class, and you talk about how this and that, it's actually the sustainable effort that we've already done with our brand. It kind of gives us more of a sense of purpose in a way. Because before we were only thinking about how to continue, how to grow, how to expand maybe, or how to make better things, but never to do it better. It's different. There's a difference between make better things and do it better. And I think I would love just to do things better in better way for the environment, for the community. So it becomes a value that I really put my mind into now.
You know, Toton, I was really excited when we spoke because I know and love your brand, and you know, it was really exciting to hear, as I said, your honesty, your real point. But so I'm not just here like Sainta Teresa or God to talk about sustainability, or, you know, it's also a business opportunity.
Yes.
So I believe that in terms of activism, activists such as myself have been too kind in many ways on the mainstream. You know, for years we've been saying, you know, it's a business opportunity, and now for big brands it is a moral obligation. You know, activists and their own customers are demanding a completely different level of standards. But for smaller designer such as yourself, then sustainability becomes something else. Because for you, it's not a marketing jargon, it's not a greenwash, it's something you've embraced quite instinctively. You had an impetus which you couldn't quite name. And hang on.
Bless you.
In all honesty, this is the future.
Yes.
So when I teach young students, for instance, and I say, which one of you is interested in sustainability? Normally now everybody puts their hands up. Even up until a few years ago, not everyone. The reality is that if you go for an interview for a job, you're unemployable unless you have a basic knowledge of ethics and sustainability and things like that. You literally are unemployable. And I think that the generations of the future are looking for solutions, and as I said, not in a saintly way. You know, we don't want to see sustainability as having as being close to missionary. You know, sustainability is about efficiency at the end of the day, and ethics are about respect. Now, you know, these are not qualities that are, you know, we're inventing for the first time. They ought to be pretty deeply ingrained in our moral value system. And at a moment in time when we know the urgency that our Earth and its population is facing, at the end of the day, I think that that sense of purpose that you're describing is also business acumen. It's also, you know, creating a business model. Except we're looking at a business that doesn't necessarily chop the leg off the people you know, that are employed in its supply chain, or that exploits the nature, and you know, to the point that, you know, makes, you know, creating damage. So when I see you, and I see you embracing this conversation the way that you do, which is really natural, which is really honest, but also business focused, you know, it's also like, you know, I've got a brand, I've got to make clothes, I've got to grow, I've got to, you know, and those two conversations married are a brilliant example for anyone watching, you know, for students local to you who might want to follow in your footsteps, but also young designers all over the world that think, okay, well, you know, this is the right balance for me. I'm not a saint, I'm not a savior. You know, I'm a fashion designer wanting, deeply craving to do better.
That's true. And I think the trigger for all these things was the pandemic itself. Like, it puts things into perspective, because we were restricted in so many ways. We cannot have the access to things that we used to have easily. So it got us thinking to, like, I mean, like, why don't we just use everything we have for start at the studio? We still have so many fabrics, bolts of fabric. Of course, we're going to repeat some fabrics from God knows what seasons, but who cares? We just have to be creative about it. We just have to.
I couldn't agree. Yeah, and I remember when I spoke, that was one of the first things I noticed. I said, look, you can do it really quickly. You introduce upcycling into your, you know, an upcycled line, and that already gives you kind of a further, you know, inspiration. There's a really interesting brand in the UK called Marquis Almeida.
I'm aware of it.
They were not necessarily a sustainable brand, but they were new gen. You know, that again, the size of a brand really does matter when we're looking at their impact. So for me, describing an emerging or a smaller brand as unsustainable, that in itself is wrong. But when they wanted to step up, when they really wanted to enter the conversation, which they did brilliantly, again, very proud to have them in our cohort, but they went with their own waste, and they said, okay, fine. I mean, you know, we've got years of, you know, leftover stock and materials. Let's just do a collection which is only about that. I mean, you know, I did that for something like, you know, nearly 20 years, but each fabric has its own identity if you rethink it, and can look completely different if you place it somewhere else.
That's true.
But also, you know, I am sure, and I'll ask you, I want to know a little bit more about your customers after. But you know, customers are very attached to small brands. And, you know, I found that when I repurposed an old fabric, more often than not, I had people who remembered it. And they were like, oh my God, it's here again. And it would go faster. So, you know, your customer, your relationship with your customer, I'm assuming is, you know, I'm sure you sell very widely, but I'm sure you also have those ones that are really intimate to you and that have followed you from the beginning. How has their reaction been to you, kind of, you know, you guys inhabiting this conversation more?
I think in a way they're kind of like getting so familiar with certain fabrics that we use, so they wouldn't mind at all, in the sense that sometimes they were like wondering what we're going to do with the same fabrics this time. Like like sometimes I feel like I'm kind of ashamed with my peers, like they're not ashamed, but in a way like, wow, they're importing fabrics from here and there, and such a nice fabrics for this season's collection. And I was just getting back from the warehouse where they put all the offcuts from every factory in Jakarta. But I was so excited there. I mean, it really, like, so many opportunities. Like, now I'm thinking not only denim that I'm going to repurpose, but also other things, because our denim, thank God, it is really well received. among our customers, and that's one thing that I can say, that they're always looking forward for denim to be reworked and to be recreated again.
Yeah, that makes sense. Denim is denim really ought to be the first bit of the industry that becomes zero waste, because it's easy to upcycle at every level. I mean, you can upcycle it when it's practically dead. It still looks amazing, and you can upcycle it direct from the factory because it's denim. So it's so kind of reproducible to a certain extent. I never really wore denim. I went on a denim strike. After pre-distressed denim, when I went inside a factory and I witnessed how denim is distressed artificially, I just thought, okay, that's it. I am never wearing denim unless it's really dark blue untouched, and I can't find that. But it is such it's the one fabric I tell all of my designers, use it. Use it, repurpose it, reuse it, because it's never ending. And it'll never go out of fashion. I mean, I am now convinced that denim will never go out of fashion.
It is
enough to see that and
it
come
is
up
quite
with that conclusion. And I also think that it's a great way for people to also understand how they can do things for themselves. Sometimes, like a darning denim or even painting on denim for children where there are stains. I think denim it's like a canvas, really. It really opens up opportunities. And I know that people, yours is amazing. So I'm glad to hear that you're repurposing and reusing it, because I'm sure that you'll do that amazingly.
Yeah, I'm really glad that I got the chance to meet you and talk to you, and let you opens my mind about so many things.
And vice versa, you've opened mine too.
So what do you think, outside of like our own brand and our own effort, that obviously very limited, and the impact as well is very limited, what else can we do to campaign to push this forward?
Well, first of all, not to think that your impact is limited. I stop you and I ask you to stop thinking your impact is limited. It's not. At this point in time, there is a thing which is, the impact, how many people are you supporting, materials, etc., etc. But that's not impact in itself. The impact that you have is also that of being a role model for many others that are younger than you and that will come after you. And that is an important place to be, and many people find it difficult, or would find it difficult. I can talk from experience. I've become one of these people that somehow, I don't like the word inspires, but is there as a reference for others to potentially emulate. And that is not necessarily what I wanted to be in life. My brand didn't have my name. I still kick and scream when people want to use my face to promote a podcast. I would way rather be more anonymous than this, but I found that being in that position helps others. And so I know that has an impact. And in a way, I feel that I've shoved you in that position as well. Designers need to be followed, because you need to sell clothes, and clothes are into, they go on people's skin. So, you keep doing what you're doing first. You keep talking to as many people as you can second, because, people that follow you as a trend, they will follow what you say. And clothes are our chosen skin. So provided your customers choose you and grow with you when it comes to this journey that you've somehow restarted, because again, I believe that you started it from the start, you just didn't quite know how to name it. So all of those people that you're bringing along, all of these kids that are your fans, that probably never even thought about sustainability or artisanal or, impetus or commitment, that is huge, because every single piece you make counts. So that's very impactful. And then, of course, there are technical things, as you grow, as you experiment, as you find that, you need to introduce new lines and new concepts. I know that you will look at what is out there, and a lot of it is information also, because in fashion change, things, change all the time. Already you're thinking of cycling where perhaps before you weren't. I mean, who knows, you might find that, inspired by Japan, your next best-selling piece will be completely zero-waste pattern cutting. I mean, it's always about finding something extra. But I believe you have both the intelligence and the commitment to keep growing. And that to me is what matters. Steady growth, and always challenge yourself to do, as you said, a little bit better than the time before. Even if that implies slowing down, or even if that implies looking at things differently. I mean, to me, you're a really honest brand. And to me, honest brands can do pretty much what they like, provided they keep that honesty and that integrity.
Speaking of brands, what would you suggest, or your best suggestion for young designers who's about to start their own brand, in terms of sustainability or in terms of anything in general?
Again, honesty is a big one. I can bring you an example. So many designers who are actually a one-person band, making clothes at the bottom of their bed.
I used to do that.
Whatever fabric they have.
Yeah.
In fact, when they start talking about themselves, they say we.
Yeah.
Because they want to pretend they have a team.
Okay.
And I say don't. I say I. Say I, because the individual is important.
Okay.
And because if that team cannot be named and honored, then what's the point in fabricating it? Because the minute you have a team, then my suggestion is to name and honor them.
Yeah.
But so my suggestion is to do what you can, to start how you can, to honor your passion and your talent and your skills, but be honest, because we are changing the world and we are seeing things differently. So I had a really interesting conversations with some of the students I lecture at Central St. Martin's for the MA. There were about 54 of them. And when I asked them what their ambitions were in relation to their brands, 52 out of 54 identified with being someone like you. They identified with UK brands such as Richard Malone, which is tiny and bespoke. Basically, they told the story of a small bespoke artisan working closely with their community and their customers. That was ambition number one. 5 years ago, if I asked the same questions, people would have said, I want to be at the helm of the biggest maison in the world with headquarters in Paris and my own limo. That vision is just like gone, people aren't interested. So if you are a young designer and you are starting out, be that young designer and be proud to be starting out. And talk, meet, exchange, connect. Listen to your peers, find your heroes, make those heroes real people, not fake influencers. And off you go.
Yeah, I think it is funny that when you share the survey about what kind of brand your student wants to be, because I remember when I started, I honestly wanted to be big. I wanted to have I wanted to have the international brand, have my clothes everywhere in the world. But I think, and then later on in the journey, I was like, I think I would like to keep it small and of quality and of.
You can be huge and tiny at the same time. So this is something I realized in many ways about my brand. The people who bought it 20 years ago still have it.
That's nice.
We weren't big, but we were global. I mean, we were in maybe 70 stockists worldwide, all the, in Italy, Tokyo, New York, I think we sold in Indonesia even at some point, but we were a tiny brand. but we had a big story, and that's important. And I can mention many tiny brands that have a big story, and that's more important to me, having a big story and being on sufficient bodies so that your story can be told without it being world domination.
Yes, that's true.
And at the end of the day, again, fame and success is really about how much people respect you. So I'd rather less, but more respectful than, globally, and being, everybody talking behind your back like they do with, Kim Kardashian or whatever. And I think those values are shifting, and that we're looking at brands that are really solid on their feet, really grounded, small but huge, tiny but replicable, respected globally for what they've done. And I think that this is a new equation, and it's gentler to ourselves, also to our mental health, gentler to our communities, gentler to nature, but also it's gentler for future generations, because it is achievable. Let's give these guys some hope that they can achieve something real, tangible, and good. That life isn't about becoming Kim Kardashian, because there's one in a squillions of those, and they don't seem to be that happy. And on the other hand, doing something good, doing something better like you're doing now is really a beautiful ambition.
Yeah, that's really a really nice way to put everything. So speaking of sustainability, how do you practice it in your everyday life? Like, I'm sure in Europe and in the UK, you have the system for your daily life, like recycling, and everything is already been in place. But like here in Jakarta, we pretty much have to do everything by ourselves. So
we do too.
Really? Tell me about it.
This is the problem. I mean, the global infrastructure is simply not prepared for the mess we've made. And that's a problem. And that's not one that I can resolve. I mean, the way we dump, from the way we, this is a really, really, really big one, which is why, I mean, there's still that thing, am I doing enough as an individual, or is my impact zilch, and does it need to be a collective, and all of that? I haven't got an answer. I'm not so sure. I am positive because I see more and more people coming up with brilliant solutions on how to do things better. But the worst that we've done, what we've done already for however long, isn't going to be offset away by, philanthropists, basically. And there's a lot of hard work that needs to be done, and a lot of it is governmental. There is no infrastructure. But I think that on a personal level, what matters is if you find, you have to find what works for you, because at the end of the day, ethics and sustainability shouldn't be about a diet. You don't go into an ethic and sustainability month, and for that month, you do everything that you possibly can until you've reached a certain body weight. I mean, that's what we're doing.
I wouldn't be
about really changing habits very deeply. And so it'll take some navigation, mistakes. I mean, talk about one's mistakes. I thought this was a sustainable practice. It's not. So, all of those questions, I think we'll need to be, to redress as a society fundamentally. I'm trying to talk about this in my second book, but again, it's a little bit, it's a big question.
Yes, and I think while we're waiting for a better infrastructure or big hands to really make change, we just have to like learning by doing, and learning by gaining knowledge, and put it on our daily practice.
Indeed. It's been such a pleasure to connect with you again, and I'm really deeply honored to have been invited.
The
into
pleasure
this.
and honor are all ours. Yeah.
It's so wonderful to have you in our cohort, and I'm really, actually, I am really proud. I'm really proud, and I thank you so much for letting me know how Fashion Open Studio has affected your journey, and it's
Thank you.
really important for us. And you know,
It's
thank
really
you.
a turning point. Yeah, thank you so much, and hopefully this can be beneficial for anyone who's going to watch this. So thank
I
you so
hope
much.
so too. I hope so
Yeah.
too. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much and take care. And yeah, talk to you soon.